Welcome to Drugs in the Marketplace. I am your host, Jen Jackson, and today we have a very special guest with us. Mr. Eric E. Sterling has joined us. We will be talking about the economic impact of the drug war, and specifically how the war on drugs affects small business owners and our global economy as a whole. Eric wrote an amazingly insightful article titled 11 Ways the War on Drug is Hurting Your Business. Now, I read this article November of 2010, and it stuck with me, and I'll tell you why. As educated as I was, and as I thought I was, anyways, and as observant as I thought that I was, this opened up a whole other genre of perspective. And it seemed so obvious once I read it, but it was something that I had never considered to take a look at. And it made a lot of sense. So I have to say that we are truly honored to have Eric here with us today. Eric is the president of the Criminal Justice Policy Foundation. He has his expert analysis is used by members of Congress and legislators and nationally syndicated columnists, major network television news programs. He's also been a guest on Fox Network and Court TV and CNN. His credentials go on, but his impact and the foundation that he has laid is so noteworthy and commendable. He was counsel to the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on the Judiciary and on the staff of the Subcommittee on Crime. And he was a principal aide in developing the Comprehensive Crime Control Acts of 1984 and the Anti-Drug Abuse Acts of 1986 and 1988. Eric's bio is not only impressive but extensive. And honestly, it would take an hour to list all of his accomplishments, his groups, committees, advisory boards that he is party to. And sadly, ours is a half-hour show, and I would like him to be able to do some talking here today. I do, however, highly suggest that you read his full bio, which can be found on the Criminal Justice Policy Foundation's website at cjpf.org. It really is just amazing, and I suggest getting to know this man. We'll get to know him a little bit right now. Eric has been on standby so patiently, and we'd like to thank him for that and bring him on board now. Eric, are you with us?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you so much for being here today. Welcome to Drugs in the Marketplace. On behalf of our listeners, I would like to thank you for being here. We are truly honored to have you.
Jen, it's a great pleasure to join you and your listeners today.
I profiled a little bit of your bio. What I would like now, can you give us a little history on your personal and professional background, and can you tell us what were your motivations for taking such a strong role in the movement for drug law reform?
I am someone from the 1960s. I graduated from high school in 1967, and as a young person, I saw the dramatic growth in the use of marijuana and other drugs among my peers when I was in college and in law school. And in 1976, when I was a law student, this was a few years after the Schaefer Commission, the National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse, had recommended that marijuana be decriminalized, I testified before the Pennsylvania House of Representatives in favor of a bill to decriminalize marijuana in Pennsylvania. I became a criminal defense lawyer in 1976 and represented people accused of a variety of crimes, including possession of drugs, and saw the problem of drug addiction among many of my clients who were thieves. In 1979, I was able to start working for the United States House of Representatives Committee on the Judiciary for the Subcommittee on Criminal Justice. At the House Judiciary Committee, I was assigned responsibility for overseeing our federal anti-drug activities. In March 1980, for example, the first hearing that I set up for the Judiciary Committee was on an oversight hearing on the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the head of DEA testified before our subcommittee. And I wrote the questions that the members of Congress asked, and then I was asked if I had additional questions. And one of the key points of the testimony of Peter Benzinger, who was then the administrator of DEA, was that the goal of drug enforcement is to reduce the supply and to drive up the retail price of drugs. When you think about it for a moment, if you are trying to drive up the price of something, it's really a very basic economic law that more people are going to enter into a more profitable enterprise.
Right.
If, let's say, that what you can charge for being, let's say a massage therapist goes from $50 an hour to $100 an hour to $150 an hour, more and more people will say, gee, I ought to do that. That's a profitable thing to do.
Sure, you actually create a value. Absolutely.
But the other thing that happens is when more and more people enter into it, if the market is not growing dramatically, somebody is going to say, there's not enough work for me at $150 an hour. If I want to get people to come patronize me, there's so many massage therapists now out there, I'm going to lower my price to $100 an hour. I can still make a living at $100 an hour. And what may happen is more and more people enter into an enterprise. You have an oversupply of the service or the product. The price goes down. Now, when you look at drugs, what you find is that since 1980, the price per gram for drugs like cocaine and heroin have fallen steadily and dramatically, that the economic objective of prohibition is a failure, and that this is because the basic economic theory that it's operating in makes no sense. You can't drive up the price of these drugs simply through enforcement and not expect new entrepreneurs to enter into the business. Any professional in business is going to understand that. And that helps explain why the price has gone down. Now, it may be the case that the demand for some of these drugs like heroin and cocaine has gone down, but the data of the total quantity, according to the government, has not gone down dramatically. The number of casual users of cocaine has gone down, but there's still a great deal of use by the heaviest users, who in any market are always the consuming the lion's share of the total consumption.
Right.
So I had that experience working with the Judiciary Committee. Later, I was asked to work on a bill to make the robbery of pharmacies a federal crime. Everyone knows that robbery is a very serious crime in every state, and it's a crime that the local police and the local prosecutors are eager to investigate and prosecute. If someone comes into your drugstore with a gun and says, "Give me all the good drugs," and rifles through the supply and runs out into their Chevy and jumps and starts driving away, are you going to pick up the phone and call the DEA field office in the state capital hundreds of miles away and say, Someone just came and stole our drugs, and we know it's a federal offense, so aren't you going to do something about it? Or are you going to pick up the phone and dial 911 and tell the police dispatcher that 3 guys with guns just jumped into a silver Chevy Impala and went north on Main Street? Well, we know that the locals that's what is going to be done and should be done, and that if the suspects are apprehended, they'll be prosecuted effectively. But what I saw was the role of politics. The local community, individually owned drugstores were being driven out of business by the pressure of the big chains, Rite Aid, CVS, Eckerd, Walgreens, and so forth. And their trade association was looking for some way to keep the membership making their annual dues payments. And they came up with as an idea to convince them that they were fighting for the small, individually family-owned drugstore in Washington. They found a member of Congress, Congressman Henry Hyde from Illinois, to be their champion, and Congressman Hyde was happy to introduce their pharmacy robbery bill. He got his picture on the cover of their monthly magazine. They awarded him a plaque at their annual meeting. But my job was to set up a hearing into this and to look into this. And as I thought about it, why did people rob drugs from drugstores? Well, it was drug addicts who were doing it. And they were doing it because the drugs that they were stealing were of known quality, of known dosage. When you buy heroin, in a street corner, you have no idea how pure it is or whether or not it's even heroin or how strong it is. So the drugs are much more valuable when they are of known potency and purity. And it occurred to me that if we wanted to solve this problem, we really needed to legalize heroin, that would be the way to protect druggists from the robbery of their stores and the dangers that they would face from armed robbers. So I began to have these kinds of insights and to see that the drug policy wasn't working. I was involved in major anti-crime legislation because the crime issue in the 1980s became a bigger and bigger political issue. And then after basketball star Len Bias died, I became a key figure in writing the Anti-Drug Abuse Act that was put together in the House of Representatives as a response. So I was playing a major role in doing this, but and my clients were the members of Congress. I had very prestigious clients. I had a very exciting job. I also was working on gun control and money laundering, pornography, and organized crime. I had a great deal of responsibility and a great deal of excitement, but I knew that the drug laws were fundamentally wrong and wanted to put all of my energy into changing them. And so in 1989, I started the Criminal Justice Policy Foundation, left the Congress, the employee of the Congress, and have been working in this field ever since.
Very nice. Now, did the humanitarian aspect of it, working so closely with addicts and being able to, I guess, get a personal life history on them and get a feel for who they were as a person outside of their addiction, did that have anything to do with your motivation for seeking out more compassionate drug laws as opposed to really, chastising them, locking them up and forgetting about them, as, instead of helping and rehabilitating and educating?